I learned this the hard way when I was 23, working the night shift at a gas station in Providence, Rhode Island. My name's Marcus, and back then, I had this dream of opening a bookstore. Not just any bookstore, a place where people could sit for hours, drink coffee, bring their dogs, fall asleep in the chairs if they wanted to. I'd spent 2 years sketching floor plans on napkins, calculating costs on the back of receipts, building spreadsheets that I'd revise at 3 a.m. when the station was empty, except for the occasional drunk stumbling in for cigarettes. The thing was, I kept it to myself. My girlfriend Sarah thought I was weird for being so secretive about it. "What are you always writing?" she'd ask, trying to peek at my notebook. I'd close it, smile, tell her it was nothing important. She'd roll her eyes, call me mysterious, but she never pushed. Then, one night, everything changed. It was a Tuesday in March. Slow night, rain hammering the roof like it had a personal grudge. Around midnight, this guy walked in. Mid-40s, expensive coat, the kind of shoes that cost more than my monthly rent. He grabbed a coffee, stood at the counter counting out exact change, even though he clearly had plenty of money. "Working on something?" he asked, nodding at my notebook. I should have said no, should have kept my mouth shut, but there was something about the way he asked, genuine curiosity, no judgment. And I was tired of keeping it all locked up inside. So I told him about the bookstore, the layout I'd planned with the mystery section near the back so people would have to walk past everything else, the kids' corner with the tiny chairs I'd already found at an estate sale, the way I'd arranged the windows to catch morning light, the coffee bar that would serve exactly 3 drinks, black coffee, cappuccino, and hot chocolate, because I didn't want to compete with Starbucks, just offer something real. He listened, nodding occasionally, and when I finished, he smiled. "That's beautiful, Marcus, really beautiful. You know what? I'm a venture capitalist. Give me a number. I'd love to talk about this more." I floated through the rest of that shift, couldn't stop smiling. Sarah noticed immediately when I got home. "What happened to you?" And I told her everything, the whole dream, the guy, the possibility. We stayed up until dawn talking about paint colors and grand opening parties and what we'd name it. She suggested chapter and verse. I loved it instantly. Over the next week, I told everyone. My mom, who cried and said she always knew I'd do something special. My best friend Dave, who immediately wanted to be my business partner. My coworker Jenny, who started giving me ideas about hosting poetry nights. The venture capitalist never called, but something worse happened. The dream started fading. Not all at once, gradually, like a photograph left in the sun. Every time someone asked, "How's the bookstore coming?" I felt a little more exhausted. Every time Dave sent me another text about his ideas for the business, I felt more resistance. My mom kept forwarding me articles about small business loans, and each one made me want to run in the opposite direction. I stopped working on the spreadsheets. The notebook stayed closed. When I think about the bookstore now, instead of excitement, I felt this heavy obligation. It wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who knew about it, everyone who was watching and waiting and expecting. 2 months later, I had abandoned the idea completely, convinced myself it was stupid anyway. Bookstores were dying. Amazon was taking over. What was I thinking? I went back to just working the night shift, playing games on my phone, existing. 3 years passed. Sarah and I broke up, nothing dramatic, just drifted apart. I moved to a different apartment, got promoted to day shift manager, started dating someone new named Kelly. Life happened, you know? The bookstore became this embarrassing thing I'd mentioned once when I was young and stupid. Then I met Thomas. He came into the station every morning at 6:47 a.m., bought a coffee and a newspaper, never said much beyond, "Thanks, man." But there was something about him, this quiet contentment that I couldn't quite figure out. He didn't look rich, didn't dress fancy, drove a 15-year-old Honda, but he seemed complete. One morning I asked him about it. "You always seem so peaceful. What's your secret?" He laughed. "I'm a painter. Finally got my own studio last year." "That's amazing. How long did it take you to make that happen?"
12 years. But I didn't tell anyone about it until I had the keys in my hand. I must have looked confused because he continued. "When I was younger, I used to talk about my dreams all the time. Had a whole plan to open a gallery, show my work, the whole thing. Told everyone. And somehow, talking about it became a replacement for actually doing it. The dream leaked out through my words until there was nothing left to chase. He paid for his coffee, started to leave, then turned back. Now I keep things to myself until they're real. Not because I don't trust people, but because dreams are fragile when they're new. They need darkness to grow, like seeds underground. Expose them too early, and they dry out in the light. He left, and I stood there behind the counter, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. That night, I went home and opened my old notebook. The floor plans were still there, a little faded. The calculations, the name chapter and verse written in Sarah's handwriting. I started over, but differently this time. I didn't tell Kelly, didn't tell my mom or Dave or anyone. I worked on it in secret, staying late after my shifts, arriving early. I reached out to real estate agents anonymously, researched business licenses, contacted used bookstore owners to ask about their suppliers. When people asked what I was up to, I said nothing much and changed the subject. It was harder this way, lonelier. There were nights I desperately wanted to call someone and talk through a problem, share an excitement, celebrate a small victory. But I remembered Thomas's words, "Dreams are fragile when they're new." 6 months in, I found a space, tiny storefront in a neighborhood that was just starting to gentrify. The rent was barely manageable, but it was perfect. Big windows, exposed brick, a door that creaked in exactly the right way. I didn't tell anyone. I signed the lease, started renovation, bought my first shipment of books, painted the walls myself at night, installed the shelves, set up the tiny chairs in the kids' corner. Each step forward felt sacred, private, mine. The day before the opening, Kelly finally asked me directly. We were having dinner, and she said, "Marcus, you've been so distant lately. What's going on? Are you seeing someone else?" I told her to come with me, drove her to the storefront, keys in my pocket. Her confusion turned to shock when I unlocked the door and turned on the lights. "This is what I've been doing," I said. "We open tomorrow." She walked around in silence, running her hands over the shelves, the counter, the coffee bar with its simple menu of 3 drinks. Finally, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it needed to be real first. Because if I'd told you 6 months ago, it might have stayed just a story." The opening was small. I'd put up flyers around the neighborhood, but hadn't made a big deal of it. 16 people came that first day. One of them was Thomas, who smiled knowingly and bought 3 books he probably didn't need. "You did it," he said. "How does it feel?" "Real," I told him. "It feels real." That was 4 years ago. Chapter and verse is still there, still small, still just barely profitable, but it's mine. Every morning when I unlock the door, when I smell the coffee brewing and see the morning light hitting the mystery section just right, I feel something I never felt when it was just a dream I talked about. I feel like I earned it. Kelly asked me once why I thought talking about dreams makes them die. I thought about it for a while before answering. I think when you speak a dream out loud, you get a hit of dopamine. Your brain registers it as progress, even though you haven't actually done anything. And then there's the weight of everyone else's expectations, their opinions, their doubt, or their excessive enthusiasm. Suddenly, it's not your dream anymore. It's this thing you have to defend or explain or live up to. The energy you need to build it gets spent on talking about it instead. She nodded slowly. "So you should never tell anyone your dreams?" "Not never, just not until they can survive the light, not until they're strong enough that other people's words can't kill them." I've learned to recognize that moment now. With dreams, with ideas, with plans, there's a point where they transition from fragile to resilient, where they've grown enough roots that they can't be easily pulled out. That's when it's safe to share, when you're not looking for permission or validation or enthusiasm, when you're just sharing something that already exists, something that would keep existing even if everyone told you it was stupid. Dave came into the store last week. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. He looked around impressed and said, "Man, I can't believe you actually did it. I remember when you told us about this plan." "That was a different plan," I said quietly. "This one I kept to myself." He didn't understand, and that was okay. Not everyone needs to. Last month, I started working on something new, another dream, different from the bookstore, but just as important to me. Kelly asked what I've been sketching in my notebook lately. I smiled and told her it was nothing important. She rolled her eyes, called me mysterious, but she didn't push, and I'm grateful for that, because this new thing is still underground, still in the darkness where seeds grow best. When it's ready, when it's real and strong and can't be killed by doubt or enthusiasm or expectations, then I'll bring it into the light. But not before. Never before.